President Alexander Vucic has just arrived for a state visit to China at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. The visit will run from May 24th to May 28th, and this marks Vucic's first state visit to China as Serbia's president. And Chinese officials have highlighted the importance they attach to the trip. President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang are both expected to hold separate meetings with the Serbian leader, exchanging views on bilateral ties and international issues of common concern. Relations between Beijing and Belgrade have reached new heights in recent years under the strategic guidance of the two countries' leaders, with growing political trust, expanding cooperation and closer people-to-people exchanges. Serbia holds a unique place in China's diplomatic relations with Europe, becoming the first European country to join China in building a community with a shared future in a new era. The numbers highlight just how far the partnership has developed. The Hungary-Serbia high-speed railway now links Belgrade to the Hungarian border in about 70 minutes. Chinese investment has expanded across Serbia, from green hydrogen projects to new electric vehicle ventures, reshaping the country's industrial sector. Chinese direct investment in Serbia has also increased more than 60-fold since 2013. China says it hopes the visit will further strengthen the two countries' ironclad friendship, deepen mutually beneficial cooperation, and advance the building of a China-Serbia community with a shared future in the new era, bringing tangible benefits to both peoples. President Vucic has described the trip as the most important visit of his political career. During the trip, both sides are expected to map out the next stage of China-Serbia cooperation, with discussions likely to cover Belt and Road projects, high-tech manufacturing, and energy security. Analysts say Vucic's visit, following a series of visits by other international leaders, reflects a broader global trend. As supply chain shifts and geopolitical tensions reshape the international landscape, many middle power countries are increasingly turning to Beijing to search of economic stability, investment opportunities, and reliable market access, rather than being forced to align with one side in a geopolitical rivalry. So the message from Beijing appears clear. In a more uncertain world, partnerships built on mutual respect and shared benefits are becoming increasingly important. CGTN, Beijing.
China's latest manned space mission, Shenzhou 23, is scheduled to blast off at 11:08 p.m. Beijing time, and that's about 5 hours away from now. The mission's crew members are Zhu Yangshu, Zhang Zhiyuan, and Li Jiaying. They are making final adjustments and verifications. They have rehearsed key flight steps and emergency contingency plans. CMG reporter Tian Ronan has more at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China.
我现在就是在酒泉卫星发射中心的这个发射区。
I am at the launch area of the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, about 150 meters from the launch pad. Yesterday at 5 p.m., the spacecraft rocket combination completed all propellant fueling operations. To learn more about the specific working conditions after the fueling, we have invited a rocket propulsion system expert. Hello. The launch process has now entered the final countdown. All monitoring and preparatory work is dedicated to the liftoff. Could you please tell us the current status of the rocket?
We have checked a series of data, and currently the rocket is in good condition. After the rocket system enters the launch procedure, we will carry out a series of critical operations, including a functional survey of the control system, all of which are crucial for the final launch.
Thank you for your explanation. Compared to the previous rocket model, this rocket system has undergone 16 technical improvements, making it more reliable and safe. The flight will be more stable, and its anti-electromagnetic interference capability has also been strengthened. Compared to previous models of spacecraft, the Shenzhou 23 has seen upgrades and optimizations in both its hardware and software, giving it stronger comprehensive performance. It is fully capable of undertaking long-term crewed missions and a diverse range of space scientific research tasks.
At least 27 people have been killed and more than 82 others injured from a blast targeting a shuttle train in southwest Pakistan. The train in Balochistan province was carrying security personnel. The passengers aboard were headed to their hometowns for the Eid holidays, and authorities said a large number of women and children are among the injured. Sources said preliminary investigations suggest the attack was carried out using a suicide vehicle-borne improvised explosive device packed with over 70 kilograms of explosives. CGTN will bring you more details as they become available. U.S. President Donald Trump says a peace agreement with Iran has been largely negotiated, with the final points under discussion. Trump says the agreement includes a process to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Axios cites a U.S. official involved in the negotiation, saying that a deal is close and differences remain on the wording of several points. The Iranian Foreign Ministry says the two sides are in the final stages of concluding a memorandum of understanding. Tehran says discussions have been moving towards narrowing disagreements. Mediator Pakistan says talks between Army Chief Asim Munir and Iran's leadership have seen encouraging progress towards a final understanding. Jim Spellman has more from Washington.
U.S. President Donald Trump says significant progress has been made toward a peace deal with Iran. On social media, Trump posted, quote, "An agreement has been largely negotiated subject to finalization between the United States of America, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the various other countries." Going on to say, quote, "Final aspects and details of the deal are currently being discussed and will be announced shortly." Trump also says he spoke on the phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and earlier he held a call with leaders from regional powers, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Egypt, Turkey, and Pakistan. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in India and was asked about the status of peace talks.
There's been some progress done, some progress made. Even as I speak to you now, there's some work being done. There is a chance that whether it's later today, tomorrow, in a couple days, we may have something to say. But this issue needs to be solved, as the president has said, one way or the other. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. The straits need to be opened without tolls. They need to turn over their enriched uranium. They need to turn over their highly enriched uranium.
At the White House Sunday, President Trump met with his main negotiators, Vice President J.D. Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Delegations from Qatar and Pakistan traveled to Iran as part of the diplomatic push to end the war. Iran's president and foreign minister met with Pakistan's army chief in Tehran Saturday. A foreign ministry spokesman says the two sides are closing in on an agreement and that Iran is focused on a commitment to end hostilities before nuclear talks take place.
At this stage, we will not discuss the details of the nuclear issue. We know that our nuclear issue has served as a pretext for 2 wars of aggression against the Iranian people. Furthermore, we have already suffered illegal attacks during nuclear negotiations. This is why we have decided, responsibly and wisely, to prioritize an urgent issue for all of us, ending the war on all fronts, including Lebanon.
Iran is suggesting a 30 to 60-day window to work out details after an initial memorandum of understanding is agreed to. Jim Spellman, CGTN, Washington.
The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the world's most strategically important energy choke points. Sepa Saremi explains how Tehran has increasingly asserted its presence over the critical waterways.
This narrow waterway carries a major share of global oil and gas shipments. I recently visited the Strait of Hormuz, where geopolitical tensions and international trade intersect. On May 23rd, Iran's IRGC Navy announced that 25 vessels had passed through the Strait of Hormuz within 24 hours under coordinated clearance procedures.
The international waterway you're seeing behind me is the main point of contention between the U.S. and Iran. Iran claims it has authority on this area, and IRGC has said several times any passage must be done in coordination with IRGC, and is also planning to implement a new tolling system. On the other side, U.S. disapproves of this plan strongly and says this place is an international waterway and navigation should be happening freely.
Amid competing claims and rising tensions, Iranian officials are looking toward a future in which They hope to formalize greater influence over maritime traffic passing through these waters.
Look, it is undeniable in everyone's mind that the Strait of Hormuz, as a strategic strait, must secure interests for both Iran and Oman. We believe that the Strait of Hormuz can function on a scale comparable to the nationalization of the oil industry. It will certainly be based on a legal regime grounded in international law, the law of the sea, and the rights of the coastal states. Therefore, both the interests of the world's nations and our own rights will be safeguarded.
So much has been said about a potential implementation of a tolling system, but even officials at this level admit they do not yet have the details.
Look, we are not receiving the money here. But certainly, those who have planned this at the national level can make announcements based on the general policies. It has not been officially announced yet.
Soaring, CGTN, Tehran.
The Africa CDC is appealing for $319 million to combat Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, and other neighboring high-risk nations. During a virtual press conference on Saturday, the head of Africa CDC, Jean Nta, said over 75% of the funding would be allocated to the DRC, the epicenter of the outbreak, and Uganda, where transmission continues to spill over. The last World Health Organization toll on Friday put the number of suspected cases at 750, including 177 deaths. The DRC gave an updated suspected death toll of 204 on Saturday and said there are now 867 suspected cases. There is currently no vaccine for the Bundibugyo strain of the Ebola virus, complicating containment efforts that span borders. Well, that is it for this edition of The World Today. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Thanks for watching. DRC authorities say death toll from suspected Ebola cases now above 200 as Africa's health body seeks funds for response. Soaring prices put basic protective gear out of reach for Congolese at the epicenter of the Ebola outbreak. And a former grain silo in South Africa showcases some of the continent's leading contemporary art. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's begin with our top story. The Africa CDC is appealing for $319 million to combat Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, and other neighboring high-risk nations. During a virtual press conference on Saturday, the head of the Africa CDC, Jean Kaseya, said over 75% of the funding would be allocated to the DRC, the epicenter of the outbreak, and Uganda, where transmission continues to spill over. The last World Health Organization toll on Friday put the number of suspected cases at 750, including 177 deaths. The DRC gave an updated suspected death toll of 204 on Saturday and said there are now 867 suspected cases. There's currently no vaccine for the Bundibugyo strain of the Ebola virus, complicating containment efforts that span borders.
Community engagement is a major priority for the government. In fact, yesterday at the cabinet meeting we held in Kinshasa, I presented the work our communication staff are doing on the ground, how they are reaching out to churches, schools, associations, traditional healers, all these people who have influence over the population to ensure that accurate information about Ebola gets out.
We have had quite a remarkable discussion with the technical teams from DRC, and we are happy to work with African CDC, WHO, and all our partners to make sure that we put our heads together, to put the skills together, we put resources together, and we deal with the problem, because it is not a DRC problem, it is not a Ugandan problem.
Meanwhile, Uganda has confirmed 3 new Ebola cases, raising the total to 5. The new cases include a driver of the first confirmed patient and a health worker caring for that patient, both of whom are receiving treatment. The third case is a Congolese national who traveled from the DRC to Uganda seeking treatment before returning. Ugandan health officials say they have intensified surveillance and contact tracing. The government has urged citizens to remain calm, vigilant, and seek immediate medical care if symptoms arise. Uganda has also suspended public transport to the DRC to curb cross-border spread. At the epicenter of the Ebola outbreak, people are facing yet another challenge with the health emergency. In the Congolese city of Bunia, soaring prices for basic protective supplies is creating a safety gap. Authorities now face a mounting pressure to contain not only the virus, but also the economic strain threatening the public health response. CGTN Sophia Shimachero reports.
In Bunia town, protecting oneself from the ongoing Ebola outbreak is becoming an unaffordable luxury. As the Bundibugyo strain has no vaccines, community prevention remains a key defense against spread of the virus. However, prices for essential supplies such as disposable masks and hand sanitizer have skyrocketed.
Ebola is here. I'm wearing my face mask. We used to sell this for 1,000 francs. Today I bought one for 1,500 francs. When we travel, we buy them for 5,000 francs. I don't like this situation. I buy a mask every day. Every week I spend between 6,000 and 9,000 francs. I pray that this disease will pass. I'm losing a lot of money every day.
Local officials say the inflation is due to reduced trade flows between neighboring countries. Nations like Rwanda and Uganda have already imposed temporary closures of borders with the DRC.
Uganda is our neighboring country, and the town of Bunia isn't too far from the border. And they have just imposed a 2-week ban on public transport. There are no buses. There is no traffic, in fact, apart from goods, so vehicles transporting foodstuffs and essential goods, nothing else.
The crisis leaves the city's most vulnerable residents with an impossible dilemma, forced to weigh the cost of health against the cost of basic needs. Sophia Shimechero, CGTN.
Health experts say cuts in international aid are undermining the response to the latest Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It has weakened surveillance systems, slowed contact tracing, and strained emergency response efforts. Here is CGTN's Richard Nta with that report.
It's the nightmare scenario health experts warned about after donor funding freezes last year crippled healthcare programs across Africa. Medical professionals cautioned that deep cuts would weaken disease surveillance, treatment, research and outbreak response systems across the continent. Now, the 17th Ebola outbreak in the DRC appears to be exposing those fears. Experts believe the virus spread undetected for weeks because of weakened surveillance systems. Many health facilities in affected areas lack the capacity to quickly detect cases, isolate patients, and put preventive measures in place.
What happened with this case was that it took almost 2 weeks for even the lab to do the diagnosis because the reagents they required for this species of Ebola was not available. It was only available in the lab in Kinshasa, not in the Ituri or Bunia area. And that was the problem. So they were returning negative results because they didn't have the right reagents.
Global agencies are now scrambling to fill the funding gap. The UN says it has deployed staff and emergency resources as more countries put together emergency support packages.
The funding cuts has had some negative impact on many of the health programs we have in the African region. Unfortunately, many of the African countries have not actually put back the money lost through the aid. And therefore, all sorts of situations concerning surveillance, even the treatment of cases, drugs have become under very severe strain.
What is now causing even greater concern is that the latest outbreak is linked to the rare Bundibugyo strain for which there is no specific treatment or approved vaccine.
Trajectory will depend heavily on how quickly we can scale up case detection, isolations, community engagement, as I said earlier, and infection prevention measures.
The World Health Organization chief warned on Friday that the outbreak is spreading rapidly and upgraded the national risk level in the DRC to very high. Robert Nagila, CGTN.
Time now for a short break. We shall reset and return with more Africa Live. Here's what's ahead. Coming up, a former grain silo in South Africa showcases some of the continent's leading contemporary art. Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. We revisit the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is struggling to contain rebel violence in its east. Authorities imposed martial law in 2 of its troubled provinces a half-decade ago, including Ituri, which is at the epicenter of an Ebola outbreak. Still, attacks have persisted. And many people there are growing impatient. CGTN's David Nta with that report.
The state of emergency in the provinces of Ituri and North Kivu was imposed by DRC President Felix Tshisekedi in May 2021. It saw civilian administrative and judicial powers replaced by military and police officers in a new strategy aimed at countering increasing rebel violence. But more than half a decade later, the violence continues, and many in the region are starting to question its effectiveness.
Over the past 5 years, the Congolese state has failed to fulfill the obligations for which it had declared a state of emergency. So 5 years on, I believe it is important that we move on and hand power back to civilians.
Meanwhile, the army says it is stepping up its operations in Ituri, where ADF rebels carried out a spate of killings for 3 consecutive days last week. It's also asking for assistance from members of the public to help eliminate this threat.
Everyone must do their bit to ensure that peace returns to Biakato and to all our communities. As for the ADF, we recognize that the ADF is still here and they continue to kill people. We struck them yesterday and killed many of them, and today we have just captured others with weapons.
A similar disillusionment is also felt by locals in Beni, the current provisional capital of North Kivu, whose former capital, Goma, was captured by M23 rebels more than a year ago. Over half of North Kivu is in rebel hands, leaving millions of people in need of humanitarian assistance, and displacement numbers remain high across the province.
We find ourselves in an exceptional situation, the state of emergency. If we were to criticize it, there is much to be said. It has shown its limitations, and we are at a stage where the authorities do not really understand what the public expects of them.
In Ituri and North Kivu, the military governors were set to issue an address as both provinces marked 5 years under martial law. However, in North Kivu, it was ultimately the army spokesperson who spoke, taking the opportunity to present several ADF militants captured during the operations.
I want to inform you that there are members of the ADF MTM Miska who crossed the RN4 and entered the so-called Triangle of Death. It is a small group that had infiltrated the area, and immediately the commander of the Sokola 1 operational sector, accompanied by his operations unit and units from the 32nd Brigade, deployed directly to the field to put an end to this terrorist act and track down these outlaws.
The central government in Kinshasa initially said the objective was to end escalating militia violence, but the strategy is yet to turn a new chapter on the violence. David Mbidi, CGTN.
Zimbabwe's government said it is not reversing the country's controversial land reform program after comments by Agriculture Minister Anxious Musoka sparked debate over the possible return of some farms to former white owners. Authorities say the discussions only concern underutilized farms protected under bilateral investment protection agreements known as BIPAs and form part of efforts to honor international obligations. CGTN's Brian Wakatu reports from Harare.
Zimbabwe's government says land reform is a closed chapter, despite considering the return of some underutilized farms protected under bilateral investment protection agreements. Agriculture Minister Anxious Masuka clarified remarks he made in Parliament, saying government was only discussing a limited number of unoccupied BIPA farms while fulfilling constitutional obligations to compensate former owners.
The Constitution says we must pay BIPA farmers for the compensate them for land and for the improvements. And that's what I said, that those unoccupied BIPA farms, they are 67, and that is what government is considering.
Government is also allowing some 409 white farmers who remained on their properties after the fast-track land reform program to buy back their farms. The largest union representing black farmers, the Zimbabwe Farmers Union, says it supports measures aimed at protecting property rights and investor confidence.
We should also honor international obligations because we are not living in isolation.
Zimbabwe launched land reform nearly 3 decades ago to address colonial-era inequalities in land ownership. Stakeholders acknowledge the process could have been managed better.
We would have planned around how to finance that, how to ring-fence production and productivity. We would have also planned on how to equip the new farmers were getting into the sector with the adequate skills.
Agricultural output plunged in the early 2000s following the land seizures. Production has progressively recovered with record-breaking yields achieved in crops such as wheat and tobacco. But industry groups say large tracts of land remain underutilized, limiting the sector's full potential.
Without addressing the issue of the land, for the land to be productive, we will probably take longer to get where we want to go.
Zimbabwe's agricultural sector is a key pillar of economic development, driving food security and exports. Farai Makutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
A former grain silo in South Africa serves as a museum to bring to the public some of the continent's leading contemporary art. The exhibitions within give visitors a chance to explore how artists today are telling and retelling Africa's stories. CGTN's Caroline B. with more.
Located on Cape Town's waterfront, this former grain silo, built in 1921, was once one of sub-Saharan Africa's tallest industrial structures. In 2017, it was redesigned into the Zaitz Museum of Contemporary Art Africa. It's now the largest museum of contemporary art from the continent and the diaspora.
Of course, the building is the most fascinating thing, but it's only the forefront, because once you see the work that is being done here, even beyond the exhibitions, the kind of motive, the kind of mission that goes beyond all of this. This museum is an African museum that is working across this continent, and it's not only about exhibiting or collecting work, it's actually trying to work with the communities that it's part of, and also foster this knowledge about African art.
While preserving the original concrete structure, the design team carved into the building 42 massive silo tubes to create the museum's dramatic central atrium. Today, the building has become a cultural landmark in Cape Town.
As you can see here, we've got some of the drawings of the previous function of the museum. So they would hold grain here, corn, wheat and stuff like that, that was from about 1924. And the museum was then converted in the late 2010s, I would say. And so we cut out the silos and put the exhibition spaces into that. And so now we have a transformed space.
One of the museum's standout exhibitions, A Protea is Not a Flower, is drawing visitors with its powerful exploration of exile, identity and belonging. Inspired by poet Don Motera's 1983 work, using South Africa's national flower as a symbol of resilience, the exhibition brings together artists and writers from different generations to reflect on memory, displacement, and how art can reconnect people through culture and community. The museum also offers a Pan-African fellowship to develop the next generation of curators, researchers, and art professionals.
So the fellowship basically invites different museum practitioners, artists, writers, kind of cultural workers from all over the continent and its diaspora in this kind of Pan-African fellowship, really, to think about what happens when we come together and how we can invest in the art ecology on the continent. So it's this kind of really meaningful program that is really interdisciplinary and trying to bring people from different countries and different backgrounds and different experiences to think about kind of the future that we're all working towards.
In recent years, young South Africans have been actively reclaiming contemporary art and museum spaces to deconstruct colonial histories. The museum has expanded that engagement with African heritage through education and artist residency programs, while partnerships with universities have helped attract researchers and artists from around the world. Caroline B., CGTN.
And over to Algeria now, and the city of Constantine, where we find artisans creating gold jewelry using a freehand technique called fetla. CGTN's Wanja Mugai with more on this centuries-old filigree technique, deeply rooted in Algerian culture.
In the old Medina of Constantine in Algeria, narrow ancient streets lead to the Meniai family workshop. Here, artisans prepare, cut, measure and melt gold, the first stages of forming the threads that are crucial in fetla.
We begin by melting raw gold in a crucible until it turns into an ingot. Then we pass the ingot through the rolling mill many times, gradually adjusting the distance between the two cylinders until we obtain a very thin wire, no thicker than 1 millimeter. After that, we take this gold wire and start bending, twisting and interlocking it using our fingers and simple tools to create arabesque motifs and floral interlacing. We never use molds, so every piece is shaped by hand and comes out unique.
The craft has been passed down through generations. The original fetla technique remains little changed to craft deeply symbolic, opulent pieces.
Authenticity means every piece is unique and carries the artisan's touch. Heritage is made with precision and love, not speed.
The technique originated and flourished during the Ottoman era between the 16th and 19th centuries. Today, demand remains strong and the workshop has also adapted to modern tastes.
Customers receive this jewelry with great love, especially brides whose trousseau is incomplete without the Constantine bridal belt. Demand is not limited to older people only. Today's youth love authenticity and are proud of their identity. But they want lightweight pieces that suit their daily wear, such as small earrings and simple necklaces. And we have provided that for them while preserving the same fetla technique.
Every piece reflects creativity, sophistication and Algerian heritage. For the Menyais, they are proud to be part of this vibrant fetla culture and are determined to pass the heritage down to their younger generations. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
Time now for our business segment. Here are the headlines. Coming up, we'll tell you about the railway project between Zimbabwe and Zambia that is now expanding to include Mozambique.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca. Among the crowds in Cairo.
Who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile. Along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. A multi-billion-dollar railway project linking Zimbabwe and Zambia is expanding to include Mozambique, creating a major new trade corridor to the port of Beira that serves the Mozambican interior. Zimbabwe and Zambia signed a MOU earlier this year for the Lions Den-Kafue line. The rail link is expected to cut cargo distances, reduce costs, and boost trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area. CGTN's Farai Mwakatuya reports.
The 311-kilometer rail link between Zimbabwe and Zambia is expected to improve the movement of goods across the region while reducing transport costs and turnaround times, linking the project beyond the two countries.
The two governments have actually agreed amongst themselves that having the MOU just between the two governments is incomplete, because we're actually going to exit via Beira, which is in Mozambique. So we have agreed that we need to bring Mozambique on board so that the MOU then can be amended, and instead of being a bilateral, it will now be a tripartite.
The expanded corridor is expected to position Zimbabwe and Zambia as critical regional trade hubs within Southern Africa. It will also significantly reduce cargo distances and improve efficiency.
So if you look at the total distance from Kafue via Lions Den Harare into Beira, it shortens, for example, the Tazara by almost 500 kilometers, which gives us quite some huge turnaround, in terms of reduction in time in turnaround.
The project is also expected to revive rail transport as a cheaper and more sustainable alternative to road freight, easing pressure on highways while supporting intra-African trade under the AFCFTA framework. Funding discussions are already focusing on private sector participation through a public-private partnership model.
So it means the three governments will really have to come out very well, properly, to design a financial, sort of proposal which will ensure that any private investor that comes in is guaranteed of recouping their investments.
Economists say the success of the corridor could depend on regional cooperation and investor confidence. Farai Makutuya, CGTN.
Egypt and Eritrea have signed an agreement to launch a new shipping line connecting their Red Sea ports. This marks a significant step towards strengthening trade and economic cooperation across the Horn of Africa. The agreement was finalized this week during an official Egyptian delegation visit to Eritrea. Egypt says it will share railway and port building expertise to support regional economic growth. CGTN's Yasser Hakim has more from Cairo.
The agreement establishes a direct maritime route that links both Egypt and Eritrea on the Red Sea. According to maritime experts, the aim is to expand trade and foster economic development on the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and Suez Canal that account for nearly 15% of international trade.
Eritrea links you to Djibouti and Djibouti to Ethiopia with over 130 million consumers market in that region. Eritrea and Djibouti will benefit from COMESA membership members like Egypt, which will boost trade for the three countries.
Shipments will be carrying various goods, including agricultural and food products, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and much more. An Egyptian business delegation at the ceremony pledged to increase investments and to work on upgrading the railway system and seaports in Eritrea.
The railway will be connected all the way to South Africa. It complements the shipping routes as containers are uploaded from seaports to railway and reach landlocked states like Ethiopia. Egypt also overlooks Asia and Europe. It can be a link for Eritrea and the huge Horn of Africa, with markets in Asia and Europe for exports and imports.
It's not just an economic deal. The agreement comes in the backdrop of regional instabilities in Hormuz Strait and the Red Sea that have hit the Suez Canal revenue by over 60%, a main source of hard currency for Egypt.
This deal helps maintaining the stability and security of a strategic corridor for Egypt and Eritrea. You are now administrating the whole coast of the Red Sea from the south all the way to the Suez Canal to ensure steady shipping flow along this strategic pathway for international trade and for Africa.
In Asmara, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati reiterated Egypt's keenness in supporting the stability and sovereignty of Eritrea. Statements commended by Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki.
Egypt has been rebuilding its socio-political, economic and military bond with Africa, as both of us are one entity. You look at trade volume of a few billion US dollars is very low and doesn't reflect the wealth in resources. This potential has to be well fulfilled.
According to Cairo, this is just one step in a comprehensive strategy of inclusivity along the Horn of Africa states. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Western China is rapidly transforming its traditional industrial base into a hub for digital innovation and smart manufacturing. That transformation was on full display at the 8th Western China International Fair for Investment and Trade, recently held in Chongqing. CGTN's Gong Ming looks at how artificial intelligence is reshaping the region's industrial future.
Step onto the exhibition floor, visitors are immediately surrounded by cutting-edge AI technology. The venue is filled with intelligent robotic arms and humanoid robots interacting in real time. In one standout demonstration, industrial robots and humanoid machines work together seamlessly to carry out precision spot welding on automotive parts.
Our industrial robots use 3D vision for precise recognition, positioning, and grasping. A robotic arm then transports the components to the spot welding station. Meanwhile, humanoid robots autonomously navigate the floor to transport materials based on operational needs. This creates a fully unmanned operation, which significantly boosts production efficiency and improves overall product quality.
This high-tech showcase reflects a broader transformation underway across Chongqing. The traditional industrial hub is rapidly upgrading through smart manufacturing, with major automakers such as Chang'an and Ceres already operating highly automated factories. To speed up the transition, local authorities are identifying the specific AI needs of manufacturers and directly connecting them with technology service providers to help bridge the digital gap.
With the rapid development of artificial intelligence, Chongqing, as a national manufacturing hub, hopes that more enterprises will adapt to these AI technologies. By achieving intelligent upgrades and digital transformation, we aim to elevate the overall capability of our manufacturing sector and build an advanced manufacturing center with global influence.
During the fair, more than 200 major projects were signed, with manufacturing accounting for 80% of the total. The United Kingdom, serving as the fair's guest of honor, sent its largest business delegation to Western China in recent years, looking to connect its advanced industries with Chongqing's fast-growing digital and green economy.
A lot of investment from Chongqing and encouragement from the government to develop this new manufacturing, so advanced manufacturing. It's also, of course, consistent with messages from the 15th five-year plan. You've now got this huge value added through technology and through AI in particular. The level of interest is, I think, pretty good. And I think that's a reflection of people's understanding that Chongqing and Western China actually offers a new growth opportunity.
Chongqing's push towards intelligent manufacturing reflects a broader shift taking place across Western China. Cities like Chongqing are looking to upgrade traditional industries and strengthen their role in global economy. Bomi, CGTN, Chongqing.
It's time now for our sports segment. Here are the headlines. In sports, AS FAR and Mamelodi Sundowns gear up for their second leg clash of the CAF Champions League finals.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Welcome into Sport on Africa Live with me, Richard Nta. Let's talk a bit of football. The stage is set for a thrilling conclusion to this season's CAF Champions League in Rabat later today. South Africa's Mamelodi Sundowns carry a 1-0 lead from the first leg of the finals against